Yo, what up, what up, what up, and welcome back to Pinoy News, man. Listen, so in the aftermath of Super Tuesday, our bae, Nikki Haley, has dropped out. I'm heartbroken and distressed. I'm in all the distress. They're like, how much distress do you want? And I was like, yes, right. I was just, yes, I want all the distress. They're like, how bad do you feel? And I'm just like, it feels bad, man. It feels bad, man. Like I can't believe, our bae, Nikki Haley, is no longer going to be running for president. Which, let's be honest here, all right, that puts things in, like a bad place, right? In the end of the day, like it puts everything in a terrible position. So what the reality is right now at the moment, we are going to have a constitutional crisis, the likes of which we've never seen before, right? I mean, short of like the Civil War, right? Which, this isn't really a civil war as per se, but it can lead up to one, right? In the end of the day, basically what the problem is, right, is that you have these oligarchs, right? That what up, TK, bro? Listen, want to come hop in the stream, you can. If not, you're working. I understand where you're at, right? We had this problem of where Donald Trump has been charged with, like, 275,000 felonies by the deep state, who, really don't want him to be president because they want to continue to run things, right? That's kind of where we're at right now, right? So I actually had some fucking pictures and shit, right? That, like, I have, right. Listen, I got some pictures and things, right? This ain't those graphs this time, it's just pictures and things. So this deep state, is very upset about the prospect of having a Donald Trump presidency, right? And this is something that, we don't like, they don't really know what to do with, because they don't have a choice but to stand here and have Donald Trump, like, get charged with a crime and continue doing what they're doing, right? So it's this problem of authority, right? In the end of the day, like, which, we're gonna be having an interview with the dude who came up with the term civilizational capital on Sunday. I recommend everybody come out and come check that shit out. It's gonna be awesome. We're gonna, it's gonna be a really, really good, really deep, really crazy live stream. I hope. What up, Vash? I'm saying, nice to see you out here, right? It's gonna be one of those live streams where, like, you have to stand here and, like, have your mind on straight. Okay, like, you're gonna have your brain screwed on straight for this one, right? Because civilizational capital is a very important ideology that, we don't really understand or grasp yet, but it's something that's coming, right? It's like, all of a sudden it went from GDP to, like, PPP, right? Like, purchasing power parity, right? And, like, it's these new terms, it's these new ways of looking at stuff. It's just going like, all right, well, we can stand here, right? Yo, what up, man? Fucking Warfest. Yo, man, good and deep, buddy. Put it the whole way in. Just get all good and deep. Right. But what up, Warfest? Nice to see you out here. Right. But basically the premise is that we are squandering our civilizational capital, right, on stupid shit that really doesn't matter, right? This stupid shit that doesn't matter is, for instance, the deep state maintaining power and not being willing to stand here and evolve and adapt, right? So when we talk about these things, right, this is very important to understand, because we're looking at something that's going to be absolutely insane, right? What happens now? Because Donald Trump and Joe Biden are the only ones running. And RFK, but, like, fuck RFK, not a real fucking thing, right? These are the only ones who are actually running. What happens if Donald Trump gets elected and he's in a fucking jail cell? That's a really good fucking question to ask, because it is a very real possibility. Like, it's better. It's probably a likely possibility. It's a probability that that's going to fucking happen. So what happens now? Because when you have, let's say, 70 or 80%, 60, 70% of the country, right? What happens when, you stand here and 70% of the populace votes for a guy who's in jail. They have to let him out, right? All of a sudden, we're looking at the Constitution and things are just completely fucked, right? It's on one of those, he comes out like fucking Russell Crowe in Gladiator, and he's just Maximus, 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 right? And like, he becomes bigger than America at that point. He becomes a figure in history that is larger than any figure in the 20th century. Fuck FDR, fuck JFK, fuck Woodrow Wilson, fuck LBJ, right? Fuck Ronald Reagan. He becomes that big of a figure in history. The importance of him to our story as a people, right? And this is when we start talking about civilizational capital, right? Thinking about things as a civilization. This is when things become something else altogether. This changes things. When the people, and this is important to understand, right? Yo, listen, when the people stand up, sorry, I had to cough. When the people stand here and go, no, when the people stand here and say, we want something else, I understand why it is that these human beings in the deep state, right, as it were, right, in this fucking deep state of a thing, right? I understand why it is that they go, man, listen, these are revolts, right? These are insurrections because they all. I'm not saying that it's like a full on, guns in hands, crazy. And that's the problem with that January 6th shit. It's literally like to call that an insurrection when there wasn't a gun in the hand except for the law is kind of crazy. Like that gaslighting thing, right? As a whole, bruh, that gaslighting thing as a whole, it's fucking nuts, right? That is a crazy premise. The way that they stood here and twisted this around, and actually, I don't even know if Americans actually believe that was an insurrection. I mean, like, we assume because they've just repeated it enough times, right? Churchill's thing, I mean, like, you repeat something enough times, I mean, people will like fucking believe it, right? It becomes the truth. That is fucking crazy. That's a thing, right? It really is. Like, it is fucking crazy that that's a thing. But what happens? The scope of this is big. The scope of this is gigantic. Like, the scope of this changes the world because America is the world, right? Like, we have aircraft carriers and a fleet in every ocean and every sea in the fucking planet. There's not a part of this planet we're not like, tinging. And so if we catch a cold, we catch pneumonia, the rest of the world's going to catch the flu. Mm. This is a big thing. I mean, this is gigantic. They've really painted themselves into a fucking corner. Mm. They're playing chicken with us. And they're betting we're going to turn first. Yeah, Warfist, bro. Like, it's not about that, bro. There's no corporation that can save this. You understand what I'm saying? Like, there is not a corporation that can save this, my brother. It's just not. It's not what this is. Like, here's the thing, and this is important to understand about like the entire like basic collapse of shit where it is, right? As things break down, you'll still go to work every day. You know what I'm saying? Like, you will still fucking go to work every day. That's not going to change. These are important mentalities to understand. Like, you are still going to like show up and do your job and come home and pay your bills. Like all that shit will not stop, right? Like that never stops. This is what people don't understand about all these premises, right? Yeah, nah, though. Like Warfish, brother, you're still going to have a home, right? This is the crazy thing, right? Check this out. So, like, as countries go through wars and conflicts and they get taken over and governments change and there's revolutions, do you think the farmers in France had a lot change for them after the French Revolution or after Napoleon or after Napoleon's deposition, after Napoleon again, and after Napoleon was, you know what I mean, exiled? Do you think any of these things changed? What happened with that farmer who grew his motherfucking wheat? No, no, it did not. Right. And this is what everybody understands. Listen, this is why when we have these conversations, it's important to understand terms when I talk about shit. Right. So, like, I talk about states and nations and like countries. These are different things. Your country's your geography. That'll always be there. Like when we say Persia, motherfuckers go, "Oh, Persia, you mean Iran?" Yeah, listen, you know why? Because Iran and Persia, like the land, it's still there. The land will always be there, right? As long as we live, as long as our kids live, right? Yeah, McDonald's was open a block away from there. You're right, TK, right? And this is the thing, right? This is the important part of this that people don't understand, right? When we talk about nations, talk about the people. When you speak of Germania, right? When you speak of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, when you talk about the Czech Empire, right? When you talk about all these things, these people are still there, right? They're still Czechs, they're still Germans, right? Even though it has risen and fallen many, many times, they're still there, right? The people are still the people. The Italians are still Italian, right? The Brits are still Brits, right? Like all of these things, the people are still the same people who were there. A nation, a country is everlasting. States rise and fall. That's why a state literally means like it actually like literally is just, you know what I mean, what is something? What is the condition of something? That's the state, right? It's the condition of at that moment. That's the state. This is important to understand. You have to understand these terms in like a larger view because our nation as a whole, right? We'll still be here. We may get new names for the places where we live, right? We may fly new flags and new banners, but you'll still be you. Your girl will still be your girl. Your kids will still be your kid. Your mom and dad will still be your mom and dad. This is the basics of things, right? This is important to understand. Like, it matters. It does, right? It matters about what your rules are as to what you're allowed to do every day. And this is why, like, libertarians are dumb because governments always set up a market. And go, Tom, like libertarians say, like markets are open and free. This doesn't sound like a free market. Nah, listen, you're not allowed to sell people, are you? Who says? The market? Because the market's perfectly fine with slavery. It's one hunt like bro. Ask any fucking corporation who went to another country and is using slave labor in sweatshops. They are 100% fine with slavery. They have no issue with it, right? But it's illegal to sell humans. Why? Because the government said so. A state sets up, a government sets up a market, sets up the rules for the market. Who arbitrates what the rules are for how we dictate how we deal with contracts? Is that the market? Would the market do that? No, because the market would say, hey, listen, I have more guns and hands than you, so I'm going to do what I want. The government says no. You're going to operate in a contextual way that makes everybody equal or makes everybody not equal. Makes this whole thing viable long term. Important premise, right? All of these things, as an in general thing, are things that you have to have an understanding about to be an adult. To be a full grown adult and a fully like aware human being, you have to be aware of all these things. So now, the question is, what happens when Donald Trump goes to jail and he's the Republican motherfucking nominee? Do they pick another nominee? I mean, that would be the easy way out. Do they shoot him in the face? Another easy way out. Would the people care if he got shot in the face? I'm not 100% sure of that. I think they would a little. Not enough to fight, but they'd care a little. They'd bitch and whine. But again, that's squandering civilizational capital. Both of these things are squandering civilizational capital. You're squandering not your rules. How do I put this? Your morals, your moral fabric. There's rules, and then there's like rules, values and preferences, as it were, right? There's rules about what you can and cannot do legally. And then there's rules about how you interact socially. And then there's rules about how you treat a human being. These are different things. Now, you can try and write some of these rules into legislation to make them into laws. But the reality is that you're not going to be able to stand here and, how do I put this? I'm trying to think of it like, because I'm at the top end of my intellectual ability at the moment. You can write these into law, but there's always going to be things that you can't. Good examples, right, as a whole, are how you treat children, how you introduce yourself, how you seal like a deal or a bargain, how you celebrate, how you interact with your family members. These things as a whole, like you can set in basic things like, listen, you can't kill them, right? Legally, you're not allowed to punch him in the face, but that may be something that like you all agree upon as mutual combat in that situation, right? All these type of things are things that are unwritten, and what they're doing at the moment is they're breaking the written and unwritten rules, right? Like they are trying to utilize their power, which they're noticing that they don't have enough of to continue to do what they want. They're trying to utilize the power of their position and their oligarchy, right, as a whole, bro. Which, by the way, we're gonna have to bring that in real quick. We're gonna have to bring that motherfucking mentality in, right? Their oligarchy. They're trying to bring the oligarchy's power to bear on the people's choices for their leader. Now, Gio, who's a buddy of mine on Discord, he stood here and he brought this to light to me. He said John Adams, as a whole, had a better understanding of things than the rest of the founding fathers. He said what it was he understood that the legislature and, like both houses of the legislature are basically going to be oligarchs. They're going to be, the representatives of the aristocracy. The president, the reason why we elect him through a free vote in the electoral college, right, is because he is the representative of the people, the defender of the people against the oligarchs. This is actually the English nobility problem, right? From, past tense, which is basically the king fought against the nobles for the people and the power. And the church represented the father in the household. And the father represented his wife and children, right? And the king would try to keep the nobles in check, right? Which would keep the nobles in check against the people. And the nobles would stand here and try to take power away from the king. This is important to understand. These are all power dynamics. This is why, like, you got to study the Italian school of politics. Our oligarchs have come accustomed to having weak presidents. Weak. Jimmy Carter, Harry Truman, uh, George Bush, Obama, Biden, right? Clinton. All these men were weak oligarchs. And some of them were actually representatives of, or they were weak monarchs, right? Weak presidents, weak heads of state. Like Obama literally just hid in his fucking room the entire presidency. His whole presidency, he just hid away and played basketball, right? Which I respect, all right? Because I like playing basketball too. I'll be honest with you. I'm a basketball American, right? Not really. But like I enjoy playing basketball. But he hid. And the reason he hid, I think, as a whole, is because the oligarchs scared him. I think that's what happens. He got into office, and I do believe that they showed him the video of JFK going back and to the left, right? And they said, we're going to know where your children are at all times. And he made a calculated retreat. This is where I think Obama was, right? Bill Clinton just partied, fucked bitches, and enjoyed himself and went to state dinners. That's it. Like, he really wasn't running things. George Bush Jr. and Senior, well, Jr. anyway. George Bush Jr., George W. Bush W., right? He stood here and he went golfing for about 90% of his presidency. He didn't run anything either. Dick Cheney and the deep state ran everything. His dad, Herbert Walker Bush, was a creature of the deep state. Ronald Reagan was a corporate lobbyist and a figureman and a front man. Jimmy Carter was nothing more than a front man as well. He was a weak monarch. All of these people as a whole, right? And before Ford, Gerald Ford, right? Nobody even remembers Gerald Ford. It's how weak of a monarch he was. All these people, right, have never ran anything. Since Harry Truman, no one has run anything. Before Harry Truman, since FDR, no one has actually ran anything. The deep state and the managerial class have been in charge, and they're accustomed to that. And the people are sick of it. The people are saying, no, we want to have somebody who actually represents us and actually does what we want to have done. But they don't really want that. And so they throw these charges on guys like Donald Trump. And so they stand here and charge men who expose their secrets like Julian Assange. So they stand here and shoot people in the face who might be a question to their power. This is how this works. This is where we are. And this has led us to a constitutional crisis. Because Donald Trump is one of the men in history who fortune smiles upon. Nobody knows why. Nobody knows how. This is not something that you can explain physically. Fortune smiles upon Donald Trump. He is the type of man who he can fall into a pile of shit and come out smelling like a rose. He's just one of those men. Lucky. Born lucky. Born fortunate. Machiavelli wrote about this. He said, fortune's like a woman. She prefers the young man who's able to beat and restrain her, and be bold and keep her under him. That's where you get that quote, fortune favors the bold. This mentality of saying fortune is a force of its own. Things that we don't understand. It's antithetical to a liberal ideology. Yo, bro, I was talking with a liberal last night, right? And this guy, he stands here and he says, "Hey, look, I told him, I said, listen, it's better to be lucky than to be good." And this guy says, "Well, you can make your own luck." And I said, "No, the fuck you can't." Right? Fortune smiles upon some, right? And liberals have a hard time with the idea that they're not in control of their lives, their fate, as it were. This idea is hard for humans in this society to deal with. That some men are just smiled upon sometimes, and they hate it. They get jealous. They think, "Hey, listen, I've made every good move in my life. Why am I not fortunate like you? Why did you end up at the same place and you didn't work?" It's all it's hard in society to think of these things. For some of us, it's, people were lucky from birth. They were given ability, good looks, strength, and just God looks out for them. That's part of life for some men, right? But reality is, as a whole, that all of these things is shit that you have to accept to become a grown up. You have to accept all this stuff. You have to accept the fact that, this dude is eternally lucky. And there's nothing you can do to be that lucky. And it's okay. There's that cool ass meme. I didn't grab it, but I probably should have. Where it's like, you had that low IQ dude, right? You know what I'm saying? He's like, "I want my leader strong," right? And then like you had the midwit going like, "I want my guy to be da 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 da," right? And then fucking like the really high IQ guys, like, "I would much rather, like I would kneel before a strong lion," right? Than, like fucking be ruled over by a bitch, right? This is the reality of things. So what happens? I don't know. I don't know. But it's fucking fascinating. This whole thing is absolutely fascinating to me. And I can't wait, right, to see how all this turns out. But I'm gonna ride with you. It's gonna be what it is. But it's been about a half hour, so I'm gonna get the fuck off of here. And look, it's Tom P's of Pinoy News. I'm gonna holla at y'all. Peace be like one. I'm out.